One of the most ancient in the world, the Gilgit manuscripts, as some of you would know, are the oldest surviving manuscripts collection in India and are indeed greatly significant in the area of Buddhist studies and in the evolution of Sanskrit, Chinese, Korean, Japanese and Tibetan religio-philosophical literature. On behalf of the National Archives of India, I would like to express my gratitude and my appreciation to the Institute of Oriental Philosophy and Soka University and Soka Gokkai for having partnered in what could be described as a truly pioneering endeavor. The National Archives, as you would have discovered by now, is proud to house portions of the Lotus Sutra manuscripts which were found long time ago in Gilgit. A crying need in our country and in other parts of the world is to make historical documents accessible. The publication that will be launched today by the Secretary, Ministry of Culture, ensures that these wonderful manuscripts can now be viewed and studied more freely. I hope that this landmark achievement will usher in the trend of thinking of creative and innovative ways of making our rich cultural heritage not just accessible but also meaningful to many.
In March this year, the Institute of Oriental Philosophy completed 50 years of existence. The idea of establishing such an institute came to Dr. Ikeda's mind when he first visited India in 1961. The primary reason for doing so was to ensure that the message of peace and harmony that India sent out into the world in the form of Buddhist philosophy and in the Lotus Sutra in particular should not be allowed to become a mere relic of the past. Rather, he believed that through the advancement of philological, ideological, and historical research, its universal relevance would be made clear, and that in future the Lotus Sutra and Buddhist philosophy would serve as a creative guide for the enlightenment of all humanity. His second reason for doing so was the conviction that in helping to promote understanding different people, culture, and religions, and by encouraging a spirit of cooperation, the Institute might serve to open the way for a dynamic and purposeful dialogue within these different culture and religions. In 1994, the Soka Gokkai, along with Institute of Oriental Philosophy, worked on a campaign that would contribute to the study of Buddhism worldwide. This would include the study of the Lotus Sutra manuscript in Sanskrit and other languages and materials of high scholarly values, and involve a plan for setting up a committee entrusted with the job of publishing the facsimile editions and Romanized text of the manuscript. The Lotus Sutra has been called the King of Sutras from early times. It has long inspired in the heart of Asian peoples a respect for life, a way of living in peace and compassion, and also it has nurtured an attitude of consideration for the well-being of all humankind. In this way, it has brought about the flowering of a varied and variant culture.
I'm really delighted to be here today in the midst of such learned people, scholars, historians, academicians. And on behalf of the Ministry of Culture, I would like to congratulate the National Archives of India on this very significant achievement in publishing the facsimile edition of the Gilgit Lotus Sutra manuscripts. This great heritage will now be accessible to many, and I hope that the National Archives is going to keep up this effort and continue with the able support of teams like the one that brought out this particular facsimile to make the wealth of information and of manuscripts that are available in the National Archives available to the people of this country.
On the occasion of the publication of Gilgit Lotus Sutra manuscript facsimile edition, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude and congratulate the National Archives of India on behalf of Soka Gokkai and the Institute of Oriental Philosophy. Organizers engage in the work of planning, editing, and publishing this edition with total support from the National Archives of India. On 24th March, the exhibition, The Lotus Sutra Message of Peace and Harmonious Coexistence, was inaugurated at the Soka University Auditorium in Tokyo. The number of the visitors as on today has exceeded 80,000 people. Among the exhibit, it is Gilgit Lotus Sutra manuscript that captured the maximum attention. The visitors seemed deeply moved by the noble mission and dedicated effort of the ancient predecessors who tried to send this message of peace and coexistence in the future. I am confident that publication of the Gilgit Lotus Sutra manuscript facsimile edition will not only contribute to the study of Lotus Sutra and Buddhism, but will also transmit the important immortal spirit of Lotus Sutra to humanity. With my sincere gratitude to Srimati Sangeeta Gailola, the Secretary of Culture, the Government of India, Professor Mushura Hassan, Dr. Lokesh Chandra, Dr. Kapil Bhatia, and other dignitaries, I'd like to conclude my greetings to all. Daisaku Ikeda, President, Soka Gokkai International.
Gandhiji sent one Japanese monk who used to recite Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. And Namu Myoho Renge Kyo was the only foreign hymn in the hymnal of Mahatma Gandhi. Lotus Sutra gave to Isha the idea that everything in life has to be a treasure, and the treasures are values. The human values, so beautifully put before you by Akash Guru. Then it was a very important source for the protection of the states. In East Asia, there was the idea of the sutras for the protection of the state. When Buddhism went to Japan in the 6th century, there were 3 sutras which were for the protection of the state. One was the Lotus Sutra, the other was the Golden Light Sutra, Suvarna Prabhasa Sutra. The third was the Mala Devi Singhanada Sutra. And as Professor Ouchi said, the Chinese professor missed this point, that the sutras became so prevalent because they were for the protection of the state. And Lotus Sutra happened to be one of the most important. So that is one of the reasons that the earliest Lotus Sutra comes from Khotan. The second comes from Gilgit, and Gilgit was closely associated with Khotan. And the Chinese version which you read, the Kumarajiva's version, it comes closer to the Sanskrit version found in the Khotanese manuscript and to the Gilgit manuscript which is being reproduced now. So Kumarajiva, when he started the translation of the Chinese text, must have had before him a more ancient version. The Cambridge manuscripts, the Nepalese manuscripts from the National Archives of Nepal, they are all recent. The numbers are much higher. And the numbers are a very important clue in deciding the periodicity of the text. These are very important matters, for example, to trace the history of the evolution of mathematics, to trace the history of the ideas. You know, why do we calculate in such high numbers? 3,000 worlds in a moment or something like that. Why do we do it? 1,000 is still okay. But when you have trichillion, in modern coinage, not in the ancient world, 3 sahasra mahasahasra lokadhatu, then the question comes up, what is the more ancient reading? So the Gilgit manuscripts, the present manuscripts, they will be very useful in saying that the original text used by Kumarajiva, the Sanskrit text, it should have been closer to the Gilgit manuscripts.
And from that day, the comparative neglect of the Oriental libraries, we brought out a book at that time, and madam, there is work to be done here. The Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, you have acknowledged me here in your invitation, did a microfilm program. The government of India set up a manuscript mission, but not enough. Because the extent of the materials, and no study can also be done unless you go to other countries, and especially Nepal. And this is concerns. Concerns because, madam, and last of all, not only you, but all of us here, you know how many people we have, scholars in this country, who can read epigraphical or inscriptional? I did a study and have been gingering the UGC and 61. In Persian and Arabic, even less. In Burunji, 10. In Modi, 25. That is, the scripts of India will become the scripts of the Indus Valley to be deciphered. We will have a generation of Indians who may keep all this neatly in satin scarves, but not be able to read them. What is the way out? Unless there is an integrated system within the university system, making it obligatory for a PhD student or an MPhil student to learn these scripts. And this is so abroad. Professor Hassan knows this very well. We make no such, and despite the fact that some of us have been gingering the UGC, not the Ministry of Culture, that unless this is done, scholarship cannot flourish. And in national priorities, if we don't think that our heritage is important, then I'm afraid that India as a global power will lose its power. I say this with some conviction and with some sense of despair. Because at our moment of success, maybe the moment of. And one scholar, only yesterday in the papers, Sheldon Pollock, as also Wendy has said, that India is on the verge of losing its cultural memory.
It is a need, it is an urgent need, and we do need it largely because we have inherited so much because of our rich legacy, and in order to preserve it in modern times with the kind of technology that is available to us, and because of the pressure, as it were, from civil society to make these things accessible, I think the resources would certainly make a very significant difference. And this is one of the, as a professional historian, this is one of the redeeming features of our times, in the sense that civil society is much more interested today in the archives or in the museum or in such institutions than it ever was, and the kind of interest that is generated by For example, the publication of these very crucial, critical, important manuscripts itself, I think, is perhaps symptomatic of the values that people attach not just to a particular text, in this case it's an exceptional one, but also to anything new and anything different and anything that would preserve and foster and promote our cultural traditions. Thank you very much indeed.